Hey, how's it going? It is Thursday, July 23rd, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe. Follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Today we'll get some coronavirus updates, and contrary to popular belief, the U.S. is actually making good progress in the fight against the coronavirus, and also looking at last night's Wednesday message. So, how are you guys doing? I'm sure you guys are just having an amazing time. Why? Because we're hitting and slowly going into the sunset of this work week. Great service last night, looking at another great message. So let's get this day started together on the Morning Star Drive. Just want to remind everyone to keep liking and commenting, and I want to hear from you guys and see how you're doing. Also, for those of you that know, tonight is Bubble Talk at 8 p.m. Malaysia time, so come and join if you like it. We're giving away some free bubble tea too. Also, this Sunday we'll be meeting Hakumiri from Mongolia. She's been running in the campus and has goals and aspirations for her life in this history, and you'll get a chance to meet her this Sunday in a fun and cool interview, so make sure to check out the Sunday edition. So, let's get into the featured artist of the day. Today's featured artist is none other than all the way from Japan. Who is it? It is Rising Japan Radio, and the song we're going to hear is an original called Wait a Minute. I guess it would be the same as Chankaman, right? When we heard that a long time ago, right? Is Wait a Minute from Rising Japan Radio. I just heard this other day. I like the vibe. A little bit more rock sound, right? A little bit pop rock, I guess. So that's going to be a great song we're going to hear for the first time here on the Morning Star Drive. The second song from the Paper Music Associates, we're going to hear from the artist J. Root, who's in the hip-hop artist. And this song is called Like This. But it's in Korean, Idero. But in English, it's Like This. Right? You know, kind of like iwagachi, like in the same way, like this kind of thing, right? The third song is from the Sumney Boys, an older song. We're going to hear the song Winner from the Game Time album. Hope you guys will continue to support and make sure that we get a lot of support for all of our members creating amazing works and songs from around the world. So let's kick it off with Rising Japan Radio with the song Wait a Minute.
と待ったそのことが言うの言わないの言ったらちょっと待ったその場所に行くの行かないの言ったらちょっと待ったその感動やるのやらないのやったらちょっと待ったその感謝するのやらないのやったら
이대로 있었으면 그냥 이대로 있었으면 해 아무런 말 없는 이곳에 그저 wanna stay 그저 wanna stay in you yeah. 잠깐 숨어 있을게 숨 쉴 시간이 필요해 천천히 아껴야 해 자주 이러진 않으니까 네가 날 챙겨야지 바라는 건 아직 어리숙한 거야 다시 같은 궤도와는 또 inertia I'm sick of inertia 나는 이 파도 끝에서 떠밀리지도 끌려지도 않은 무중력에 이 작은 우주 속에서 Flowing on a black sea 바다 기억을 더듬어갈래 이대로 있었으면 그냥 이대로 있었으면 해 아무런 말 없는 이곳에 그저 wanna stay 그저 wanna stay in you 나는 이 파도 끝에서 떠밀리지도 끌려하지도 않는 무중력에 이 작은 우주 속에서 Flowing on a black sea 바다 기억 저편 넘어 은하수로 다시 시작해볼까
Ever since I met you, I just feel like a winner. I don't wanna stop. SB, let's get it. Yeah. Every day I feel like I'm a winner. We just eating every time it's dinner. You're the realest trophy that I have. Everybody wishes what I have. I really wanna get to know you. Nothing feels like winning if we aren't together. I really wanna get to know you. When you are with me, everything is better.
I really wanna get to know you. I take the time out just to show you. I don't need to pick petals off a flower just to say that I adore you. I chill with you till the sun goes down. When I'm with you, my world goes round. When you call, I come around. Even in the crowd, you're the only one I see. The others try to catch my eye, just know you're for me. I hope they know they can't compete. Now my head is in the zone. When
I'm with you, not alone. I never let you go. You're everything to me. Together we're not losing. No way.
Every day I feel like I'm a winner. Ay. We just eating every time it's dinner. Ay. You the realest trophy that I have. Ay. Everybody wishes what I have. I really wanna get to know you. Nothing feels like winning if we aren't together. I really wanna get to know you. When you are with me, everything is better. It's special every time when I'm around you. I feel like there's just something different about you. You always bring the best out of me. No limits to this love I can see. No limits when I'm on eagle's wings. Nobody touching us when we win. When lovers become one, they don't lose. I don't play no games, not with you. Every day I feel like I'm a winner. We just eating every time it's dinner. You the realest trophy that I have. Everybody wishes what I have. Every day I feel like I'm a winner. We just eating every time it's dinner. You the realest trophy that I have. Everybody wishes what I have. I really wanna get to know you. Nothing feels like winning if we aren't together. I really wanna get to know you. When you are with me, everything is better.
Together and never ever apart. I love spending time with you.
All right, and that is Winner by the Sumney Boys. I hope you guys enjoyed that chill and relaxing song. Of course, the first two songs with the featured artist of the day, Rising Japan Radio, and that song was Wait a Minute. And also the second song, Paper Music Associates, J Root, the hip-hop artist, singing Like This. Cool. So that brings us into a time we can look at the coronavirus updates for the day. At the moment in the world, there's 15.1 million cases with 620,000 deaths, which makes it 4.1% mortality rate. Just want to let you guys know once again, almost across the board, the mortality rates are going down, except for one country today, which is South Africa. Actually went up a little bit, okay? So just got to know, across the board, it's just been going down more and more, and I think there's no other country that's been falling more fiercely than the U.S. at the moment. The U.S. is 4 million cases with 145,000 deaths at a 3.6% mortality rate. They used to be at the same rate, actually much higher than the global rate, but now they've fallen so quickly, and even underneath Brazil, which was way below them at the past. Brazil right now is 2.17 million cases, 81,000 deaths at 3.77%. India is at 1.2 million cases, 29,000 deaths at 2.4% mortality rate. South Africa, the only country that went up in their mortality rate, is 381,000 cases, 5,300 deaths at a 1.41% mortality rate. Colombia coming back into the picture, 211,000 cases, 7,100 deaths at 3.4%. Mexico kind of falls out of the top six. And the only other country that has requested for me to kind of update them is the Philippines, 72,000 cases, 1,800 deaths at 2.55%. Great news, once again, Sweden is going down, one of the only countries, well, one of very few. I know Hong Kong was very similar, but they might be going into lockdown pretty soon. But Sweden, 7.22%, and they're going down once again. Belgium at 15.26%. They had a big jump, also going down in their mortality rate. If we look at infections for daily infections, the U.S. yesterday was 67,000 cases at a 2% increase. Brazil is 44,000 cases. They jumped back up to in second place in most infections at 2%. India is at 39,000 cases at 3%. And of course, South Africa, 8.1 thousand cases at 2%, and last but not least is Colombia with 7,000 cases and jumping up about 3% for that day. So what does that mean? It's going to move us into a very, very interesting thing. This is something that's kind of baffles me because I'm not in the States anymore, so I only hear what the news says. But it's very, very difficult to get like real raw time like statistics, like what's actually going on, because we a lot of this stuff is very politicized in the news, and we don't really get to hear everything that we would like to hear. We only hear the things that people are saying, and it depends what they want to say, and there's a narrative and everything else like this. So I had to, we have to go into the statistics, with the government statistics and also with the CDC. So I want to get a better view of what is actually happening with the coronavirus. And for listeners, those listeners in America and also those who are really wondering what is happening over there, let me just give you raw stats more than what people are thinking. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the interesting stats in the United States at the moment when it comes to the coronavirus. At the moment, the median age of death is 78 years old. So it is still an old person's virus, right? This is not like the common day flu, because the flu, kills many people of different ages. But the coronavirus is still, it's a virus that kills mainly older people. And this stat may be alarming to you guys too in the States is almost 50% of all your deaths are inside nursing homes. So whenever you see any statistic, if you see if it's 145,000 people that have died so far, what was it, 145,000 people? You have to know that almost half of them are from nursing homes, right? It's not from hospitals, they're from nursing homes. Which means that the median age is 78 years old, which means 99.96% of deaths are all from adults. I'm going to repeat that, 99.96% of deaths are from adults, which means that children are almost immune to the disease. It's near 0%. So this data has held up in science that they're not likely to get sick. Very, very few. So if you do see like a child or a baby getting sick from the coronavirus, they are the 0.04%. It's very, very low, right? So some people can push a narrative and show like a dying child. It's very unlikely. It's so small at the moment. And the only thing we're not sure about is the transmission of children to adults. Still not sure about this. It's inconclusive at the moment. Also in America, stockpiles, PPEs, medicine, treatments are surging. So we have a lot of stock of these things. U.S. fatalities have fallen 75% since April. So there's nothing going up. It's actually still going down. U.S. fatalities have fallen 75% since April, and the rate we're at right now, I believe it's around 3.6% fatality rate in the U.S. It's better than all of the European Union, and it's even better than most countries in the entire world. And even though there's some hotspots in the U.S., right? Some states have some hotspots, like about four states are like really, really bad. But overall in America, it is calming down overall. And since April, if you think about the time people are hospitalized, hospitalization stays, the length of how much they're staying has been cut in half since April too. So if we were to give an example, if it was like 20 days that that coronavirus patients have been hospitalized, it's been cut in half. So it's been like 10 days now. So that's a great sign. And hospital mortality rates have also been cut in half since April. So not only are people staying for shorter visits at the hospital, the amount of people that are actually dying in hospitals has been cut in half too. So that's another great sign. Also, every single state, all the governors in every state have reported to the federal government that they have received everything that they've requested. So there's another good sign. So it might sound like a lot of states are complaining, but actually when it comes to PPEs and all the requests that they've had, it has been sufficient. Okay. Also, every state has reported in America that they have sufficient hospital capacity. So don't let it fool you when people say that one hospital is full, because even if it's one hospital, there are multiple hospitals taking in patients, and all governors have reported that they have sufficient hospital capacity for coronavirus. So there's another good thing. Also, in the last 2 months, just the last 60 days, testing has quadrupled. Testing has quadrupled, and this is one of the reasons why we have so many cases. There's so many cases in America. There have been 50 million tests made so far in America. What does that mean? It is 50% more tests per capita than Europe, more than anyone, right? It is 3 times more than the rest. If you take the rest of the Western Hemisphere, combine them together, and it's 3 times more than the entire Western Hemisphere. So testing has gone up like crazy, right? And that's a good thing. right? Testing is a very, very good thing that has to happen. So if you ever hear about things like testing's not enough, testing has been more than enough, and per capita, they are so far ahead of everyone, right? They are ahead of many people. 50 million tests is kind of ridiculous, right? It's almost like other countries, like testing an entire country. Also, the hardest hit states right now, I believe there's 4 states. I believe it's like Arizona, California, Texas, and Florida. They have received help with about 7,000 medical military personnel, which is a great sign. So all of these states are getting help from about 7,000 medical military personnel are going to help there. And one thing you may not know in America is that there are already 2 vaccines in final testing this month. They may not be American, but at least there are 2 vaccines in final testing. The first vaccine will be ready almost immediately. They say within the next 4 days. That will start to be ready for a larger group to be tested. And there's been such a tremendous progress in vaccines. Like just the breaking down the sequence of the virus, this took 6 weeks when it usually takes years. So that is crazy. And therapeutics and different ways to treat and therapies for the coronavirus is dramatically improving. And the government and military are going to give full logistical support so that we can get enough of these vaccines for people. Right? Just a little highlight thing here is just to know that when you look at the news, it's very easy to highlight anything and make it seem bigger than it really is. Like I'll give you an example is like say children with the coronavirus or dying or being sick from it. Yes, it is something that is kind of a tearjerker, or it kind of tugs the heart when you see a child that's suffering from the coronavirus in the news. But you need to know that it is literally almost at the non-existent level that that children even get the symptoms. That's how it's like they said, literally, it's almost zero. 99.96% of all deaths, right, are from adults. Yeah, so that's why a lot of people are talking about reopening the schools. We'll probably talk about that tomorrow, maybe next week. But all these stats and findings, you can find these on CDC websites. These are being updated weekly on legit news programs. So, it kind of reminds me, if you look at a miniaturized level, when people who are very pessimistic and they're very negative, it's very, very easy to focus on these small things and overlook the good qualities or good aspects of other people because we're so focused on the negative. So, you got to make sure that we're not getting too focused on this one part. Like, oh my gosh, look at this person's suffering. Well, it's one person out of 350 million people. And if what's bigger than this is not so much the tear-jerking, heart-tugging things that you can show on news programs. The most important thing is, what is the overall thing that's going on? I think that's even more important. What is the overall thing going on in that country? Why are there so many cases? And the answer is, well, especially in America, it's because they have 4 times more testing than almost every country. They're testing more than everyone else in the world. So that's a good sign. And so if you ever hear someone say, oh, we're not testing enough, you guys got to know in America, you guys are testing really, really well. Okay, so I hope that those of you who are listening from America kind of get a good idea of what's going on too, that it's not as bleak as it sounds, but I hope that we can be those that can really be able to see the big picture. Okay, so let's take a look at, let's have a time of praise. Okay, let's have a time of praise. Let's get our spirits back up and understanding what's going on. We're going to sing a couple praise songs today. The first song is going to be Let's Preach the Words of Life. The second one is one of my favorites, I Have Found a Treasure. And the last one is a song from Sun Seaman. That one is Please Call Me. So I hope that all of us will put on our praise, I don't know what you call our praise clothes. I don't know. Let's get the praise going, okay? I hope that all of us here can sing together, giving glory to the Holy Trinity.
Surely bear fruit in the end. This time let us arise, rise up, shine your light. Preach the new word of life to every soul in the world. Truth is on fire, so we are blazing, giving all our youth, giving all our youth. We are captured perfectly only through love. We have gained heaven's golden city. Let us all go and preach the Lord's word of life. Though we may be weak at the start, we will surely bear fruit in the end. Let us send forth all the people of mission, spread the gospel to all the world. And as we teach, we'll fulfill the will God's purpose for mankind. Beautiful ones of this time, let us arise, rise up, shine your light. Preach the new word of life to every soul in the world. Truth is on fire, so we are blazing, giving all our youth, giving all our youth. We are captured perfectly only through love. We have gained heaven's golden city. Truth is on fire, so we are blazing, giving all our youth, giving all our youth. We are captured perfectly only through love. We have gained heaven's golden city. We have gained heaven's golden city. We have gained heaven's golden city.
I have found a treasure shining bright. Here I am, standing in that place. In my heart I'm singing praises of great thanks, and the Lord's love rises from deep within. Love fills my heart and overflows. With the Lord's condition, we can see this blessed history. Forever I'll be thankful to you, Lord. In this place that you've prepared for us, I have found a treasure here. My love will burn, it will never change. I give love and praise to the Trinity. You've given me so much, so with all my heart and mind, I'll live for the Lord, I'll live for His will. This history of life I will surely fulfill. Now the time that God has set has come, and He has blessed us with treasures. In my heart I'm singing praises of great thanks, and the Lord's love rises within my heart. Love fills my heart and overflows. the Trinity. You've given me so much, so with all my heart and mind, I live for the Lord. I live for His will. This history of life I will surely fulfill. I give love and praise to the Trinity. You've given me so much, so with all my heart and mind, I live for the Lord. I live for His will. This history of life I will surely fulfill. I give thanks to you. Oh, how I love you, Lord. You love me so much. And because you love me so, I receive this gift, this treasure of lasting love, a treasure that never fades. I'm so grateful, my Lord. I'm so grateful, my Lord. I'm so grateful, my Lord.
When the Lord comes, when He's in Wangnyongno, please won't you call me? When the Lord comes and appears in providence, please come and tell me. I've waited so long for my Lord to come. Finally He's come. Now He is calling me. Now He has come, bringing God's word. God was waiting for Him, I waited too. Until the moon rises till the stars shine. Share with me all the stories of times when we could not meet. All that you went through, won't you tell me, please? Though you haven't said much, all of your stories carry stories deeper still. Every pain and struggle, all that you've done, and for us too, we have deep stories. In those days, tribulation struck like a storm, harsh winds of endless persecution. We were left questioning, can we meet with the Lord again? The ideal world, can it be not forget all those times come to mind. Truly we didn't know that in the future history would change like this, rising brightly. Truly God, you're great, you're almighty, you're omniscient. Truly my Lord, you're tenacious, powerful, you endure, you do it to completion. We cannot help but cry out, truly great, the Lord is truly great. We did well to believe and follow, truly we did. This is what I have realized here today.
And that is Please Call Me. It's one of the songs since it was written. Amazing song. We sang that last night too during the Wednesday service. I hope you guys really enjoyed that song. Also, we heard Let's Preach the Word of Life and I Have Found a Treasure. And I hope that you guys enjoyed those songs and a time of praise. And let's move into the time of the Word. Now, the Word was a pretty intense message yesterday. And, well, it was interesting because it started off kind of just giving, well, not kind of, it's like giving the message and like the Messiah takes action continuously like a thief. And that made me think a bit in the beginning. Because even though he's in one nation and he can't visit other places, but he's still like a thief, which means spiritually he's going from place to place, seeing the situation, right? In spirit, he goes to places to visit, see what's happening, and he's rendering judgment on countries and such, even though we have no idea. Like, if you think about it, what's happening in China right now, I just heard the news, is they're catching all these corrupt officials that have millions of dollars stacked in their house. It's the craziest thing because they're so corrupt right now. There's no checks and balances over there. But tons of these Chinese officials, the latest person, I forget what position he was, they found $60 million in their house in cash. They said it was like the weight was like a ton. $68 million in their house. In their house. And this guy has multiple houses and such. So it's really, we're seeing things that we would have never thought were there and we have no idea about. But it's like the Lord already checked out all the different places and he's like just like putting judgment everywhere. It's really, really crazy the way that you think about how everything's being done in secret like a thief. So he appears continuously. And he said, even for each and every one of us, he's visiting us and looking how we are doing things and how we are taking action. So that's something that if we look only physically, he's, when you look at Sunseam, he's just in Wonmingdong and rarely gets out. But just that, he says, yeah, the Messiah takes action continuously like a thief. I'm in one nation, can't visit other places physically, but he is checking many places, and that's something that we have to, keep into consideration. And knowing that the less spiritual we become, the more physically we start to think, and then we think to ourselves that God is not watching us. And that's kind of one of the symbolisms of why they say thieves come out at night, because physically speaking, people can't see very well because it's dark. But in the same way too, if you think about it, if God is the sun, he's always out in the open and everything is exposed. But the moment you stop looking at God, it's like you're at night where you can't see anything. And we start to do worse, like bad things, because we are becoming more physical more than anything else. So we need to really realize, this week's message, realize what's happening right now, nationally, what's happening in your country, in the time period, religiously. You got to see what's happening. It's very interesting. A lot of things are being exposed right now in every country, and we get to see how which people are on our side and which aren't. I was looking at like news in Australia. You kind of get to see which countries, like which of the political people are on the side of China because they're making money through China, which businesses are more on China's side because they're making money because of China. And it kind of makes you see what's like, who's on which side, right? Or who are doing things because for the people more than for themselves. One part that was really interesting when he starts talking about selling houses. It was like out of left field. Like, this is definitely for this part of the message is like not going to be for like maybe, I would say 90% of Providence. This has nothing to do with us. It's like for these very, very like people who are getting to buy their house or selling their houses. It's probably for just like 10% of the world that's listening to this message. And it's really interesting because these things all pop out a little later on, where some seems like, I told you guys you got to do it like this, right? So he's like, people who are in this situation, like big business people, will calculate these things well, and the people who know are the ones that do well, right? So he's like, it's not good for buyers because it's too expensive, but it's really, really good for house owners, yet they can't do anything about it because no one's going to buy their house anyways. But yeah, that for me, I'm like, wow, I got to keep that in mind because in the future, it's going to pop up again. When he's going to say, remember I told you about this? Remember I told you that the taxes were really high? And I told you that selling is really hard, even though it's really good for you. Those who have bought houses, it's much better for you guys, but no one's buying. And we're like, for me, I'm just like, whoa, why is he all of a sudden talking about this? There's got to be something that God is trying to talk to a certain group of people that maybe are trying to sell or trying to buy. So it's something that's very interesting that we can look at also. And an answer came out in the Wednesday message, because from the Tuesday message, Sunday message is like, you need to realize about your daily life. What does God want you to do in your daily life? You have to realize what God wants you to do. And the answer is, without taking action, you don't know what you need to do, which means the answer is you got to go and take action. Go and take action, and then you realize the things you had to do. Take action, move around, then you'll realize what you need to do. And this is basically the answer for this week's message, right? When you, everyday, daily life, don't just sit around waiting for God to tell you exactly, or pray for like 10 hours trying to figure out what God wants. Because if you pray for those 10 hours, what happens? You've only got like 6 hours left to run. It's better off that you pray for the 1 or 2 hours and then spend the next 8 hours running and achieving things, getting things to happen. So that's the answer, right? We were wondering, how the heck are we going to realize these daily life things? God takes care of the big things, but you have to realize the small things for yourself. I'm like, what? And he says, without taking action, you won't know what you need to do. So there's a big answer we got from the message this week. Also, one that was very interesting for me, because I was listening, I'm watching a lot of the news and all the natural disasters happening around the world, was when in the part of the message he said that creation moves according to God's plan, right? All creation has its own timing for things. When it's time to rain, it's going to rain, like the rainy season. You can't stop how nature moves, or there'll be difficulties. And it was interesting because in China, the floods right now, they had to destroy parts of dams, because if they didn't, it would cause even bigger catastrophes for the entire dam itself. So they blew up parts of a dam so more water could flow through. And, that's kind of like when it's big rainy season in China, and the floods are like, this is crazy floods going on. Nature moves fiercely, right? If it's according to God's plan, it moves fiercely, and you can't stop how nature moves, or there's going to be a lot of difficulties. So I was thinking about these floods that are happening in China too, that it's so the water's coming so fast. That Three Gorges Dam, which is one of the largest dam projects in the world, not a dam project, but it's an actual dam, right, that's stopping the water. And they said structurally it could collapse because it's so much water. Yeah. So, man, yeah, there's so many things, because in the end, it talks about the key point is about the 5 months, right, of judgment. One thing that was really a good reminder that made me think much more deeply was people who walk the path of heaven, or, we receive suffering and pain during that time, and we can't do so many things. Like people, like people who walk the path of death, comfortable and free, and they do whatever they want, and they're like people like, oh, I'm not in Providence anymore, I don't believe in God, so I'm so much more free. But broad and wide is the path of death, and narrow is the path of life. So it's something that we have to take into consideration is as we get older, we might want to stop like, oh, I don't want to go through this suffering anymore. But this is the people who walk the path of heaven are going to go through these things. We may not be able to do as many things, but this is all for the path of life, which means that this time that we're going through right now is not going to last forever. But we have to realize this is what's happened to the world now ever since it's fallen, that people want to live freely. People want to do whatever they want. People don't care about what it means to live righteously and live for God. And this is why it's become so much more harder, because the rest of the world doesn't believe in God and they want to do whatever they want. So we have to be the ones basically that has to realize the will of God. It's those that realize the will of God. We're the ones that become blessed every day, and we're walking on the path of heaven. Like, that's the biggest blessing, is we're walking on the path of heaven, if you think about it. Right? So, this message, because the ending was kind of like the Shimjung came out in the end. He's giving out these proverbs, like when he talked about a house, if you live in a house all your life, then you won't realize the value of having a house. It's like, or if you have a mosquito in your house, you get upset because you didn't build a house for that dang mosquito. And it's hard for us to be thankful, right? But you have to be thankful while you're living in a house, because the Lord gave it to you. Even though you're the one that made the money and such, God, the Lord made many things happen so that you can get that house. And it was a beautiful transition. I'm a lecturer, so it was a beautiful transition into your house in heaven. So listen to the word, put the words into action of righteousness and merits so that you can build your house, right? Your houses in heaven are being built, so diligently build your spiritual house. That was really, really big. One part that was really funny for me, he's like, hey, some of you are leaning on the wall, leaning on the sofa, stretching out your legs. And I was stretching out my legs. I'm like, huh? I was like, what? And he's like, Holy Spirit's looking at you, and she's telling me these things. And I'm just like, oh, no, right? And he's like, well, it's as long as you realize the word well. You guys are working hard. Some of you working in Warmindong, some of you had children, so stretch out your legs. But do not doze off. And that was the key thing there. But as long as you realize the word well. So I was like, oh, okay, thank God, right? So I'm like, stretch. He's like, are you stretching your legs? I'm like, oh, how'd you know? And it was funny because like I was stretching my legs, and then you kind of like looking around if there's a camera around you, or like, wait, hold on a second, if someone's watching me kind of thing. So yeah, that was a funny part for me. Realizing about yourself. Things won't work out if you don't realize about yourself. And I like the part when he said, you people are just going around taking care of others and they don't take care of themselves. You got to take care of yourself. Realize about yourself. Then you can take care of yourself better, not just focusing on other people. You have to know yourself. See if you're doing well. Discern yourself well. It's all about yourself, right? Is there something needed for yourself? Then you have to realize this. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of different things in here that I liked. Of course, one thing I liked is doing things in a fun way. Yeah, if you think it's work, it becomes hard, right? If you think it's work, it becomes work, it's hard. But if you do it in a fun way, then it becomes easier, right? Serving and loving God should be done in a fun way, or things won't work out. And God too, God is happy when he sees you doing well and having fun. Do everything in this way. Right? God frowns when we don't do it well and we're not having fun doing it. So I hope that all of us here too, we got to find new and fun ways to do things. God is happy when we do it well and we have fun. So we have to serve and love God with fun. Realize, take action in our daily lives. Have positive thoughts. The way we think changes the world that we live in. So then it goes into, like, there's a lot of other things in the word, but man, when it got to the end, it was really, it felt like this was the real reason why the message of Realize came out. Right? Like, he said, let me summarize the word, Yeah, of course I have to interpret the sealed words in the Bible, but I've already done this for 40 years, and now we've raptured. We suffered for 5 months. This is the core in the Bible, right? Suffering for the 5 months. Nation in the world has suffered. It's been resolved by God. You're suffering, da 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 da. And then then all of a sudden, it looks like it's ended, and then it goes into like how thankful you have to be to God. Like, he even said, like, if you only bring 1 or 2 people, how shameful that is, right? Like, evangelizing only 1 or 2 people. Like, so few people have been chosen. This is how valuable you are, right? So few. And if you just go and leave, then another more ideal person who's chosen will come, who's even more prepared. You were chosen even before you were born. And this was kind of setting up for something even bigger, right? It was like this big buildup. God has been helping you from the time of your parents and your grandparents and from your ancestors. You have to realize this and know you've been helped from your grandfather's time. And this is why you have to realize and take action well. And then he got a little bit more serious into the Lord is making history with the word. Like, people don't realize through the word the Lord is making history right now. Before the Messiah appeared, there were so many other prophets that came. Many great people came before the Messiah to prepare for him, but not many people knew that they were sent to prepare the path for the Messiah. So many great people were born. So be thankful you're born. Be thankful. You were born to serve and love God. If you have no purpose, then there's no hope. Or, life, if you have no purpose and no hope, then you're just living a life like a Christian or someone of the former faith. So you have to have faith, and joyful things are going to come. It's from the Lord's grace. Now, sometimes it's so sad for me that he has to toot his own horn. Like, he's saying that because of me, you came this far. Because of this is reality. It's not a concept. Without me, would you be here? Without me, would providence even exist? You're living in this new time. You have to realize how great this is, right? Are you only going to realize who I am if I start walking through walls? People just believe, and this is the thing that was like killer. It's like, but why are your actions so small? Why are the things you take action on so small? If you know correctly, you'll take action correctly. And that was the key. You have to realize about the Lord. What did he say? Think about this. This might sound so arrogant if you're very, very physical, if you're someone who's not realizing what's happening. The Lord, it's from the Lord's grace. Remember, what is grace? Grace is to realize, but grace is also the gift, right? That's why in the Bible, you'll see that what is the gift of God? The gift of God is that for free, without anyone deserving it, salvation came to us, and Jesus died on the cross. It's through the Lord's grace that we came. All of us, like even in Christianity, it's all about the Lord's grace. Because of Jesus, we are saved. Because of Jesus, because of the Messiah. It's all focused on Jesus. So if you think about this, when he says the Lord's grace is because of me, it's true. The only difference is he's actually living right now. And that's why it's a little bit harder to say, oh, it's because of you. Jesus is already gone. He died on the cross, and we look at that, and it's very easy for us to say, oh, the Lord's grace. Without him, would you be here? Without him, would providence even exist? So when will you realize? Do you just believe? But think about it. If you knew correctly, your actions would be correct. How would they be on small things or bigger things? He said things would be so different right now if you took bigger actions. Man, you are a bride. You're the one literally communicating with God. You are living the most tremendous, the greatest life. And you are serving and loving God. You got to realize how valuable you are. There are things you need to do, but you're not doing it. Don't lose the life of the bride. Like, gosh, at that point at the end, I was like, wow. You have to realize the Lord deeply. Realize. So yeah, that when that ending came, it was just, it was powerful. And I was like, that was the shimjung of this week's message, right? The people are not realizing about the Lord. What's he doing? How great he is. Christianity, Jesus is everything. He is everything. So it was a really shimjonic message last night. So I hope that you guys were really able to catch those things and see what the Lord was saying. So we're going to move into the next portion of today's show. on the Morning Star Drive. The song of choice, and I chose this song because it's one of my favorite singers and it's one of my favorite songs. Well, like just the way that she arranged this song is amazing. So this is from a Korean singer. Her name is Sohyang. We heard from her like way back in the beginning, like episodes like through 1 through 7, and we're already on episode 93. We're gonna be hitting 100 soon, so I'm really happy about this. So here's Sohyang, and she's gonna sing this song called Arirang Alone. Holo Arirang, right? And Arirang is a Korean folk song, and this is something that I learned even when I was growing up, and I was in Canada. Like even I know this song. And it's sometimes they consider this song Arirang like the unofficial national anthem of Korea. It's that big. Everyone knows this song. And it's an ancient native Korean word. It's got no direct modern meaning, Arirang, but it's the name of a Korean mountain pass, right? And if you did go into the Chinese characters, Arirang, it means to find my true self, to control it, and to lead it to enlightenment, to enjoy happiness with it, right? So this song Arirang is a song embodying the unique energy of the Korean people, and this is like a rearrange. It's like a new arrangement that Sohyang made. Lyrics and the song arrangement was made by her with the original song inside of it too. Many people consider Sohyang as the Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston of Korea, and she has worldwide recognition for her voice, her style, and she's so amazing. If you listen to it, she's so good. She's so amazing. So those of you guys who have songs of choices like from your country, I would love to hear like who's great in Taiwan, who's great in Japan for these songs of choice, great in Malaysia or Singapore, Indonesia. I would love to hear those singers too. So let's listen to Sohyang, and she's gonna sing the song Arirang Alone. Wow, 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 wow. So I don't know, guys. If you guys have heard anything more prettier than that voice, she's just so amazing. Her voice is more classical style, but she's so good. That song is actually very emotional, and a lot of people, if you watch the live, well, it is live. It's a live, crazy as it sounds. It's a live recording. Tell me that's crazy. It's live recording, which is just ridiculous. Her voice is that good when it's live. So yeah, when I listen to that, when you watch it and just see the emotion on people's face, because it's such a core, like traditional song that everyone in Korea knows, young to old. And when they hear this done in such an amazing way, a lot of the older people were crying and stuff like that during it, but it's so good. Okay, so either way, that brings us into kind of not a news section, because I still want to do testimonies, and I hope that you guys keep sending in testimonies too. I'm not sure how many times we want to do this, but we're going to go into some, not, I'm going to say Bible stories, but I also want to help people learn about like the history of God, especially starting with the Old Testament, because people don't like reading the Old Testament. I know it's Old Testament's hard. It's like a very, very hard place to start. But I do hope that with more background information, you can read the Bible a lot better and more. Okay, so I'm gonna go today into kind of an overall view of the Old Testament and why it's important for us to know. Because if you kind of get the background story, you'll realize like what the flow of the Old Testament is. So let's take a look at the Old Testament in general. So I need to kind of teach you guys, not teach you guys, but I want to share with you guys the overview and understanding why the Old Testament is important. Now, we have to realize that in the Old Testament time, the nation of Israel, or the chosen people, did not exist yet. So if you look at the fundamental reason why the Old Testament, what was happening in the Old Testament, was the condition of the history of God needed to be set, and then the actual physical nation of Israel had to be made. So everything starts with the conditions that need to be set. And of course, was supposed to begin with Adam and Eve. And they were supposed to set the condition that Abraham eventually did, which was the condition of faith. So Adam and Eve committed the fall, and there were 1,600 years of silence that brought to time of Noah. And now Noah was interesting because Noah was the one that did set the condition of faith. He believed what God said, and he began to build the ark and tell people what was going on. Problem was, his son Ham didn't have enough faith in Noah. So that broke the condition once again. And there was another 400 years of silence. So for the first 2,000 years of God's history, think about that, 2,000 years, God's history couldn't start. The condition wasn't set until the time of Abraham. And Abraham had to set the condition for the entire time period. And because of the failures of the past, his condition became even greater. So if you remember from the conflict and ignorance study, if you can't do it the first attempt, the second attempt is much harder, right? In the first attempt, what did Adam and Eve have to do? Just not eat the fruit. But at the time of Abraham, what happened? At the time of Abraham, he had to sacrifice his only son that was born when he was 100. And this is the type of faith that was needed to begin this, because of the failure of the first attempt. The first attempt's always easier. So now that the condition for the time period has been set, the next condition was the personal condition, the individual condition, which was set at the time of Isaac. Now, one thing that Isaac did really well was he was actually even willing to be sacrificed. There was no fighting. There was no like, hey, Dad, where's the sacrifice? It's like, let me just tie you up and put you on the altar. Hey, Dad, where's the sacrifice? He didn't jump off. He didn't run away. But whatever God wanted, he would follow, because he really, really believed in his father. So he sets the individual condition, and that's one of the greatest things he did. Because if you look at the rest of Isaac's story, there's not really much of a story after that. And then he had twins, Jacob and Esau. We talked about him yesterday. And Jacob was the one that set the family condition. He had his children, 12 children, the 12 sons of Israel. And in that final battle to save his family from his brother Esau, who wanted to kill him for stealing the birthright, he wrestled with God and he prayed for that blessing until his entire family was safe. And he set that condition for the family. And finally, one of the 12 sons he had was Joseph. And Joseph set the national condition. And he was sold to slavery and was sent to Egypt and eventually became the prime minister. And he saved the entire nation from the 7 years of famine. And from this, it begins, like, these people are like the most important ones because they set the condition, the spiritual condition for the nation of Israel to begin. And now that all the conditions were set, what was the next step? In order to have a nation, the next step you need is land. And that's why after Joseph, there was 400 years of slavery in Egypt. Moses comes to save them. And what's the first thing God says is, I'm going to take you to the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey, which means that the next step was to get land, because a nation is not a nation without land. So Moses, 40 years in the desert, and because they did wrong, the next step was for Joshua. And Joshua leads the army into the land of Canaan and defeats the 31 tribes. Of course, they weren't all defeated in the time of Joshua, but they defeated most of them. And of course, at that time, the way things worked was I take whatever I can fight for, whoever stronger gets it. There was no such thing as borders and lines. So they defeated most of the people and the tribes in the land of Canaan, and they began to build their city. However, of course, in that time, there were many, many tribes and other people that still wanted that land. So the next thing that happened was a time of judges. And the time of judges lasted for over 300 years with famous people like Deborah, with Gideon, Samson. And they were judges, and they are the ones that judged these other tribes and nations that kept coming in to try and steal the land. As we know in the time, we already heard in that first story of Gideon, the Midianites basically took over Israel for 7 years. And then Gideon came as a judge, destroyed the Midianites, and there was I believe there's 20 years of peace. At the time of Samson, the Philistines came in, and there was 40 years of peace. So when you see the time of the judges, they weren't actually like rulers of the land. They still ruled because they were like, the military was the most important part, but these were the ones that were able to help destroy all these incoming nations that trying to take the land away from them. The moment the land was secured, there came the last judge. His name was Samuel, or the first prophet, you can say. And this is when the time of kings began, and the unified kingdom started, and Samuel anointed the first king. And the reason why people could believe in King Saul as the first king is because the prophet anointed him. It was never done before. So a prophet anointing a person as king is the same as God appointing them. And this is why they're able to follow King Saul. And they had a time of kings, and they're bringing in government, right? They're bringing in rules and restrictions, trade, military, politics, and this is part of growing a nation. So after they secured the land, after the time of judges, the land was secure, and then they began to govern the land, and that's when the kings came in. And there was 120 years, 40, 40, 40 for Saul, David, and Solomon. And after Solomon, because of all the idol worship, the kingdom split into the north and the south. And because of this big split, there was about 400 years, from around 922 BC, going all the way to 1309, I believe. And there's about 400 years of this split. And then after that, in the split, there was a north and the south. And northern Israel lasted for about a good 200 years. It was actually literally 201 years. and they were taken over by the Assyrian dispersion, right? So there's a lot of things happening, a lot of big, like Assyria, which was a big empire. Babylonian Empire came in, and at the end of the 400 years, the Babylonian captivity came in, right? So when you kind of look at the history of the Old Testament, it is basically the physical building of the nation of Israel, the chosen people, because you can't have a Messiah come to the nation without an actual nation made. And so you have to kind of look at it as the overall building of getting ready for the Messiah, right? And so after the Babylonian captivity, there was 210 years. They were held captive for 70 years. Then they were sent back to rebuild the wall, rebuild the temple. And then at the end of the 210 years came Malachi, the last prophet, and he began to bring people back to the scriptures to prepare them for the Messiah. And then 400 years later, Jesus came along. So this is kind of like when you look at the whole Old Testament put together, but you have to realize it is about starting a literal physical nation, the chosen nation that God chooses, and it's all in preparation for Jesus to come. Without the nation, where would he come, right? So that's why it started with Abraham, setting the conditions, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob to Joseph, and then Moses came along to bring them to the land because a nation needs land. And then once they secured the land after the time of the judges, it was a time for governance, so that there had to be politics and government and everything else had to be set. And then, of course, during that time, there was a lot of problems that happened in Israel. So it's something that we see that it was all in preparation for the Messiah, but they needed a physical nation that was governed well too, right? So I hope that this kind of helps you out when it comes to understanding the Old Testament. You get a better idea why there's so many rules and regulations and laws, and Moses talks about this and that, and so many other different things, because it was the making of the nation of Israel. Cool. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that section, and if you guys have any other questions or things that you want to know about Bible stories or the history of God or what Sunseam says about certain things, I'd be glad to put in a series for you guys. But I hope that will help you guys out so you can learn the Old Testament and read it with knowledge, knowing why everything is happening. So what does that mean? It's bringing us to the end of today's podcast. I hope you guys really enjoyed it today. I enjoyed it. And everyone, have a wonderful Thursday, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
I let it happen. Yeah. Believe in yourself and believe in somebody.
Gotta believe in yourself. Cause no one else will.
You have the power